to review the election status of the nation, as well as provide policy guidelines to election observation and monitoring in this country. The APP is the highest policy level organ of ELOG and comprises of chairpersons of the member institutions of ELOG. It is scheduled to meet once every 3 months. The APP now wishes to make the following recommendations to the nation. 1, speeding up of electoral reforms. For more than 3 years now, ELOG and other stakeholders in the electoral sector have called upon Parliament to speed up the crucial electoral reforms. This call has not been heeded to, has been ignored, and if this trend continues, then the next election cycle will be chaotic and possibly tragic for this nation. We once again reiterate the urgency in processing and passing of the following. 1, political party primaries bill. 2, referendum bill. 3, campaign finance amendment bill. 4, representation of special interest groups bill. And 5, the gender parity bill. We further urge Kenyans to remember the advice that Justice Kriegler gave that electoral reforms should be undertaken less than 1 year to the general elections. The urgency of completing the electoral reforms was emphasized last week, as you all know, during the several by-elections that were held in different parts of the nation. The preliminary statement issued by ELOG last week detailed that our observers documented several incidents of voter bribery, election violence, intimidation, and possible elections malpractices, with allegations of pre-marked ballot papers being stored near a polling station. In addition, media footages that you also showed several election offenses being undertaken. Now, the prevailing electoral environment, coupled with a slow rate of reforms, is worrying and is likely to get worse as the expected referendum of 2022 general and the 2022 general elections get closer. In this regard, we urge Parliament, the IEBC, the Office of the Registrar of Political Parties, the Political Parties Disputes Tribunal, and other stakeholders to consultatively speed up the necessary electoral reforms to safeguard the 2022 general elections. Our second recommendation is that the electoral institutions should be made functional. Tenets of democracy require that electoral management bodies be adequately provisioned in terms of human and financial resources to enable them execute their mandate and be independent. This will enable them adapt an electoral cycle approach. These institutions include the IEBC, as we said, the judiciary, Political Parties Disputes Tribunal, and the Office of the Registrar of Political Parties. We are therefore concerned that these institutions continue to be starved of funding and personnel to effectively implement their programs. There has also been witnessed a growing level of disrespect and disparaging remarks being made against these institutions, with many political leaders and civil servants issuing public statements that discredit these institutions and cause negative perceptions. We warn Kenyans that similar trend was witnessed in 2006 and 2007 period, as we all know, leading to chaos and violence that was witnessed in 2007. To avert a repeat of the same, we strongly call for the following. 1, Parliament is to create, or should create, an independent funding mechanism for these institutions similar to the political parties contained in the PPA 2011 and IEBC fund and PPDT fund. B, the President and concerned institutions to urgently fill the vacant positions of the Supreme Court of Kenya, in the Supreme Court of Kenya and the entire judiciary, and also in the IEBC. 3, the acting Chief Justice to consider appointing ad hoc members who would enhance the capacity of the political parties dispute tribunal to hear and determine cases at the regional level, even as we move towards the next general elections. And fourthly, the Ombudsman to independently initiate investigations and prosecution, and Ombudsman and any other parties to investigate and initiate prosecution for any party or persons who promotes disrespect of the electoral institutions regardless of their positions and political persuasions.
On impunity, ELOG states as follows: further to the documentation of incidences of voter bribery, violence, harassment, and intimidation of electoral officials, the country has witnessed continuous involvement of state officers and public officers in political spheres, and in some cases, openly showing their political persuasions. We are also concerned about the apparent partiality of some actors within the security and administrative organs of the state. This demonstrates the highest level of impunity, and this cannot be tolerated in any mature democracy. ELOG calls for the following: 1, strict adherence to the Electoral Code of Conduct, as well as a strict enforcement of election offences law to preserve the integrity of the electoral process. 2, culprits that break the Electoral Code of Conduct and commit these offences to be speedily apprehended and justice served. And 3, security agents should execute their mandates with impartiality so that justice is achieved for all Kenyans. For justice should not just be served, but should be seen to be served. 4, state officers and public servants ought to refrain from involving themselves in political campaigns, and where they must, then they should offer their resignation before involving themselves in political contests. And 5, need for continuous voter education to be scaled up to ensure that it is also targeted to address specific needs of the youth, women, the elderly, and other minorities. Close collaboration between agencies that are responsible for keeping law and order, as well as those who enforce adherence to the electoral laws and the code of conduct. On early campaigns, ELOG would like to state that the country has witnessed a significant rise in early campaigns, with different political outfits being formed and divisive narratives being propagated, including drums of war being played, leading to loss of lives, as was seen in Murang'a County. Today, Kenyans are being balkanized into perceived political camps that are supposedly mutually exclusive, which includes that one is either Kieleweke or Tanga, or either a dynasty or a hustler. ELOG is concerned that such narratives deeply affront national cohesion and integrity. To avert possible violence during the referendum and the 2022 elections, ELOG urges as follows: 1, all political actors adhere to the electoral legal framework, which is clear on the timelines for political campaigns. Any activity outside this legal framework should be discontinued and action taken on the violators by the relevant authorities. B, Leaders to exercise political restraint and civic responsibility in their public utterances and meetings. And 3, all members of the public and political leaders to adhere to the laid down COVID-19 containment protocols. Those found to be violating and flouting these guidelines should be held to account and necessary action taken against them. In conclusion, elections are a celebration of fundamental human rights. For every right, there is a corresponding responsibility towards its realization. ELOG holds the view that for every vote to count, those charged with the responsibility for promoting, protecting, and fulfilling the right to vote must discharge their responsibilities with utmost dedication and strict adherence to the laid down laws and procedures. We therefore call upon all Kenyans to maintain the peace, sobriety, and discharge their civic responsibility with dedication. Let us all be committed to peaceful elections, free, fair, and credible elections in 2022, and the anticipated referendum. This is signed today by the Advisory Peace Panel of the Election Observation Group, by the National Council of Churches of Kenya, the Kenya Episcopal Conference, Catholic Bishops, the United Disabled Persons of Kenya, the Federation of Kenya Women Lawyers in Kenya, the Constitutional Reform Education Consortium, the Institute of Education and Democracy, the Supreme Council of Kenya Muslims, and the Youth Agenda. Thank you. We shall have a... Okay. Yes, Jackie, I don't know whether you want a Kiswahili version. I think I can. Let me do it. Tumeshukuru sana kwa kazi ambayo imefanywa na ELOG. ELOG inamaanisha Election Observation Group. Kazi ya ELOG ni kuangalia uchaguzi na kuweza kutoa habari kwa wananchi kama uchaguzi ni wa haki na ukweli. Leo tumekutana hapa kama viongozi wa vyama mbalimbali, vyama vya vinavyoshughulikia uchaguzi hapa nchini, na tumeongea mengi. Ya kwanza tumesema kwamba kuna ule mfumo wetu wa uchaguzi Kenya, na kama tulivyoona uchaguzi uliopita kulikuwa na shida tofauti ambazo tungependa zitiliwe maanani katika mageuzi ya sheria na mipangilio. Ya kwanza ni maneno ya vyama vya kisiasa vile vinavyoendelezwa, na tungependa zile sheria ama mjadala ya sheria iliyo katika bunge kuhusu hayo ipitishwe. Kuna ule mswada pia kuhusu referenda, na ni vizuri upitishwe na Wakenya watoe maoni yao. Pia tungependa maneno ya mswada kuhusu gender upitishwe na bunge kabla uchaguzi ujao. Katika ile ripoti ilitolewa na Critical Commission, ilikuwa dhahiri kwamba mageuzi yote ambayo inahusu uchaguzi ifanywe mwaka mzima kabla huo uchaguzi kufanyika. Na kwa sababu tuko karibu na uchaguzi wa 2022, tungeomba kwamba mashirika yote ya kiserikali na yasiyo ya kiserikali yanayohusikana na uchaguzi yatie bidii ili mageuzi yote ambayo yanastahili kufanywa yafanywe kabla ya mwaka mmoja kupita. Pia tumeongea kuhusu shughuli za IEBC, na tungependa kwamba kwa sababu tunajua IEBC haina commissioners wa kutosha, tungeomba kwamba serikali na mashirika ambayo yanashirikiana katika huo mjadala tuwe na hiyo tume ya uchaguzi iwe na commissioners wa kutosha, na iwe na secretariat ya kutosha, na iwe na pesa ama dhamana ya pesa inayohusika katika uchaguzi kabla uchaguzi ufike. Ya pili, tumeona kwamba ule uchaguzi ulifanywa wiki iliyopita kule Matungu na Kabuchai, kwamba kulikuwa na maneno ya wale wapiga kura kupewa hongo, kulikuwa na vita, kulikuwa na intimidation, na pia kulikuwa na matusi kadhaa. Na tukifanya observation kama ile report tulitoa kama ELOG, tungeomba kwamba wale IBC, polisi na judiciary na wale wote wanahusika na uchaguzi waendelee kuhakikisha kwamba sheria inafuatwa, haswa isiweze tusiwe na watu ambao wanavuja sheria na hakuna hatua inayochukuliwa. Wale walionekana kwa picha zile zimetandaa kwa mitandao na kwa vyombo vya magazeti na vyombo vya habari, kwamba wachukulie hatua, ndiposa wawe somo kwa wengine ya kwamba hakutakuwa na ukiukaji wa sheria bila kukuwa na hatua kuchukuliwa. Ya pili ni kwamba tumeona watu wengi viongozi wa kisiasa wakianza campaign ya mwaka wa 2022 mapema. Tungependa kwamba IBC ichukue ushukani wake na pia serikali iweze kuzuia wale ambao wanafanya haya, wagojee wakati mwafaka ambao utatangazwa na IBC kufanya yale. Pia tumeona kwamba kumekuwa na milengo tofauti ya kisiasa. Ni haki yao kuwa na milengo, lakini ile milengo tunaomba isiwe inaleta uhasama katikati ya Wakenya. Kama nikieleweke na tangatanga, waendeshe biashara yao kwa haki na ukweli na njia ambayo inafaa. Pia ile milengo ya dynasty na hasla, pia hii ni mambo ambayo inahujumu amani katika nchi na inaweza leta uhasama katikati ya watu. Na tunaomba viongozi wote wa kisiasa waangalie mienendo yao na matamshi yao, yaani ni ya kuunganisha Wakenya, lakini sio ya kuzabaratisha amani na kuleta uhasama kati ya Wakenya. Ya mwisho ni kusema kwamba sisi kama ELOG tungependelea kwamba mikakati iwekwe ili referendum ambayo inakuja na pia uchaguzi wa mwaka wa 2022 uwe ni wa uhuru, ni wa amani na ni wa haki. Ni hayo tu kwa sasa. Asanteni.